purchasemusicexchange.com. Sponsored by music industry leaders Regal Tip, Ernie Ball, Ampeg,
20th Century Mama.
and now your hosts, Rich Rodenmoser and co-host The Doctor.
Hi folks, welcome down to Heard It on the X, the East Coast premier music talk show. A beautiful day today, absolutely beautiful day. It was freezing last night.
It's beautiful. The sun is shining.
It's gorgeous.
Jim's got $400 jeans on.
Today's show, we have Malia's going to be joining us again.
Yes, I wasn't here last time. I don't know why. I was off doing something, but I wasn't here when we had her on the
You
first
weren't.
time.
She performed in studio. She's absolutely wonderful. She's young. She's beautiful. She's motivated. Exactly the opposite of the morons that I'm surrounded by here in the studio.
No motivation here.
Nothing. These guys are really one step of being above special needs. Both of us. Actually, he might be.
You
there.
sound like my guidance counselor.
Plus, later on at the 8 o'clock hour, we have Michael Lang, who's going to be joining us. Michael Lang is the brains behind Woodstock. He was the one who put on the Woodstock concert.
He did.
And actually, I got to say, this is really an exciting thing for me. I remember watching the movie, the Woodstock movie. If you've seen the Woodstock movie, Michael Lang's the guy. He's got curly hair. He's wearing the brown vest, and he's driving around the site on a motorcycle. They ask him a question, and he takes off on a motorcycle. Which I just think that he's like really one of the coolest guys I've ever seen.
Anybody on a motorcycle is cool.
That's true. Who doesn't like motorcycles?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Especially if you got that curly hair just blowing in the wind.
As always, joined by my sidekick Josh. For some reason, he has art with him. You want to explain what you got going on here?
Because I noticed this art today. We've been in the studio.
In the studio?
Yeah, I've never noticed it. I've probably walked past it a good 200 to 400 times, somewhere in that range. And look at this, it looks like Bob Ross came in and did a special painting just for Dick Green, the owner of the station, in this lovely, this is pure copper frame here.
Right. This is radio, though. You realize that nobody can see what you're holding up. It looks like a painting that was maybe in Grandma's attic.
Yeah, it looks like there was maybe a rummage sale after, Grandma passed, and this one had a 25-cent sticker on it. I do have to say, the mountain, do you see this mountain in the background? Not that anyone listening can see it. There's a glacier. This looks like a Vienna summer home, but then if you look in the background, there's an ice cap melting, which...
It's disturbing.
Global warming.
It's right. Maybe that's depicting.
But yeah, so I brought that in the studio today.
It's
Show
nice.
and tell day.
It's like, and you have it on the chair that's so broken that it's up so high it actually looks like an easel.
Yes.
There's a chair in the studio that is so high that you could actually work on your roof by sitting on this chair.
It actually goes higher. Should I put it higher?
No, I would just leave the chair alone. I would leave the painting alone. I would leave the chair alone. Well, interesting that you're talking about that, because maybe that painting is worth some money. You don't know, right?
When I took it off the wall, I was expecting to maybe see a safe behind it, or just a hole in the wall with a bunch of money. There was nothing.
Nothing at all.
No. Lovely wallpaper, though.
This week I was able to see this history detective show. Let me bring this up on the computer really quick.
Yeah. Put it up. You showed it to me before we went on the air.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool.
This is actually one of the coolest Buffalo stories ever in the history of the world. Buffalo has absolutely the most phenomenal musicians. And in the beginning of rock and roll, there were so many Buffalo musicians sprinkled all over everything. As a matter of fact, a couple people and myself are talking about doing a show called Buffalo Connection, where, we tie in all these things. Gary,
I thought it was going to be a dating show.
It is going to be a dating show too, yeah. A dating show and vintage rock musicians, which really, those are the guys that need dates. Think of people like Jimmy Anger. He needs a date.
He needs a date.
He does.
No offense to Jimmy.
Right, and how's he gonna get a date?
But I think he'd fare a lot better if we did put him in like a dark room where they can't see him.
Correct.
And then just let them ask him questions.
But Jim Anger is a perfect example. You can see Jim Anger all around town, anytime, playing anywhere.
He's playing somewhere right now. You don't.
He probably is playing right now. Jimmy has played with Stephen Stills. He's played with George Harrison, Bonnie Raitt. He was the director of the Pro Jam at the China Club for years and years and years. He was actually there and part of the band that exposed Milli Vanilli for being fakes. He was Billy Vare and the Beaters piano player. So there's
1984 Olympics.
84 Olympics. So there's a lot of folks here. Gary Maliber played on Van Morrison's Moon Dance album. He played on Steve Miller's albums. Shawnee Mac McCuller's been on the show with us. He's the lead singer of Kool and the Gang. Rick James, obviously from town here. But there's a lot of musicians that played on albums that are monumental albums. Sandy Konikoff being one of them. Sandy Konikoff, good friend of mine, good friend of a lot of musicians in town, from Kaisertown. And Sandy, or lives in Kaisertown. Sandy was on Joe Cocker's Mad Dogs and Englishmen album, which is a monumental album. Taj Mahal, all the Taj Mahal stuff that I can remember as far back as forever, Sandy was on. And he did a small stint with a fella named Bob Dylan, where he toured with him for a while. But I was watching this history detective show. Some people, as a matter of fact, it was Mick Hayes, speaking of another Buffalo legend, who brought it to my attention. So I'm watching this show. Lady comes on the show, and the idea of the show is it's almost like a Mythbusters type show. One of them shows you'd see on A&E. This is on PBS though. They are talking to a lady whose father was a pilot.
Like a private pilot.
Private. He was a commercial pilot, and then when he retired, he flew people around. He flew Dylan around a lot. In '66, Dylan went and played the Newport Folk Festival. It was the first time that Dylan was ever seen playing an electric guitar, and it was really monumental thing that happened because he got booed. The people there weren't having it. They wanted Dylan playing an acoustic. So he was standing up there with the Sunburst Stratocaster, Fender guitar. One end of the wings was visibly shaken from all accounts. Came back out with his harmonica and his acoustic guitar, finished the set, gets on the plane, goes back where he's got to go, next tour date, whatever the case may be. This lady claims the guitar was left on the plane and she's in possession of it. So she's sitting there and she's, the Mythbuster people or the history detective people, I mean, are there and they're questioning everything, and the acting is just miserable in this thing. It's really put together poorly as far as the acting goes. But at one point she pulls out handwritten lyrics for a couple songs that end up on Blonde on Blonde, a monumental Dylan album, and that's still not enough for them. And she's got the guitar and everything. That's still not enough for them. So then she pulls out a picture of her father, which that one made no sense to me at all. It's like, who cares really about your father? But the second picture was Dylan and Sandy Konikoff, which is like amazing to me that the long reach of Buffalo musicians with all
just hanging out in an airport.
In an airport, yeah. Dylan and Sandy in an airport. It looked like a loading dock maybe too. It could have been a loading dock. Who knows? Maybe it was the private airport where it was supposedly taken by her father. One of the other cool things with the guitar, they took it to Rochester to a friend of mine, Andy Babuke. Andy is he's super heavy in the industry. He had a band called the Chesterfield Kings. He also wrote a book, the Fred Gretsch book he wrote, the Beatles Gear book he wrote. He's working on the Stones book now.
He's pretty tight with Little Stevens.
Right? Yeah, Little Stevens is manager, as a matter of fact. Yeah. They took it to Andy, and Andy was able to definitively say yes, that it is Dylan's guitar, based on the fact that there were some photographs taken. I was talking with Dave Frost yesterday, and Lee was a photographer and let Dave go do crazy things with photographing things when he was a kid. So basically, a little Dave Frost was there at the Dylan concert, who had his dad's camera and took pictures of his guitar, and they were able to blow them up and give them to Andy, and he was able to actually see the wood grain in the photographs. So he was able to identify the guitar by the photographs, identifying markers on the original guitar that are on that guitar. So, what do you think that guitar is worth?
I don't know. Did they give
$300,000 to $500,000?
Wow.
But it's culturally such a huge piece that it could.
Especially, it's not just a Dylan guitar. It's the Dylan guitar that got him booed off stage.
It's the monumental guitar that the first one that he appeared on stage with, and he got booed off and blah 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 blah. But it could feasibly go for more. The lyrics, the handwritten lyrics, and they're not complete lyrics. It's just ideas that he was jotting down.
Yeah.
Handwritten lyrics, $50,000.
A couple of months ago, I did that story. Remember? I think it was the lyrics to. We were talking about it the other day. I forget what. It was "Blowing in the Wind."
Right.
Went for like $250,000.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's crazy.
It's amazing. And these are not complete lyrics. It's just.
Yeah, it was just scribbling.
Yeah, ideas, crossed out some stuff, put in some other stuff, just trying some things. And, yeah, pretty cool though. But if you want to see that, you can go to, I think it's pbs.org, and go to the website, and then go to the episodes of History Detectives and you'll be able to see that on
You
there.
can probably find the episode of Bob Ross where he paints this masterpiece on there as well. So look for that.
You can actually do just Google Dylan's guitar, and it'll come up that way too,
Okay.
because that's how I found it originally.
Uh-huh.
But it was pretty cool. It's really cool. So how are you faring?
I'm doing
talked,
well.
we
Yeah,
talked
this
last
is my
week about-
second week back,
second week from
back surgery.
surgery.
And I'm pretty sure at this point I'm invincible. I've escaped
You
death.
did a lousy job raking the leaves at my property. I told you that.
I escaped death many times in my life. This time I didn't really escape death. I'm just healing like a superhuman would.
Right.
Yeah, you know,
Almost Christ-like.
almost Christ-like, almost like the bad guy in Terminator 2. You know, where he just immediately, not as fast, but I'm doing well.
Yeah. You're holding up well though.
Yeah, I'm doing okay.
Recommend surgery for kicks for people.
Yeah, you score some good drugs there.
So Jimmy was telling me before we went to air that he went to the Erie County Fair.
He did, and
agitated a carny.
he got in a fight
I
with
don't-
a carny.
Get Jimmy on this mic because I still don't understand what this
Jimmy,
story
don't
is.
knock over the painting.
And
Don't knock over.
mind the expletives,
Really?
Jimmy.
We can't
Whatever
do
you're gonna
that.
say, just please remember
Yeah.
it's a PG show.
Yeah, I got punched by a carny.
You did not.
It was awful.
So explain the whole story to me. What happened?
Well, I was playing a game, innocently, a water game, and this guy came up.
Was it
and-
the shooting in the clown's
Yeah,
mouth?
yeah,
Was it?
yeah.
It's the best one.
Well,
Yeah.
and you do nothing innocently, by the way.
Okay.
Everything with you has
Okay,
moved.
so I admit, before the game, I sprayed everybody in the face and still won. And but this guy came up and he thought he was being funny, and he started swearing at the carny lady, and she was super nice. And I'm like, dude, I was like, don't mess with this lady. And
Oh, so this is just somebody, a random passerby.
Yeah,
Did she have a mustache?
She may
Maybe
have.
like a little peach fuzz
Yeah,
where
she
she
was wearing-
shaved it a couple weeks ago but hasn't gotten back to it.
She was wearing cover up though, and she goes, "If you don't think I won't come over this counter, I will, and I'll have every carny on you." And
Carney with makeup. Are you sure you went to a strip club?
okay,
You're definitely at the
all
fair?
right, yeah, I think
I don't
was
see
at
him
the
wearing
fair,
makeup
at
very
least.
often.
Yeah, okay, yeah, all right. I may have been at a strip club,
Okay, so
You were spraying people in the face. Continue.
but so she comes over the counter at this guy, and as she's coming over the counter, a guy from the game across the way comes over and knocks the guy out.
cut it out.
Right on the ground, flat out. And
Really?
security comes and takes him away.
Just like elbow to
And
the
he
temple, or
No, like fist to the face.
wow.
And he was down on the ground.
Did he hit the guy with one of them giant stuffed animals that you could never possibly win?
Yeah. Something
Wouldn't
like
that be great if it was the guy with like the mallet for like
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
the
yeah, that'd be
mallet
great.
thing, and he came, he just whacked the dude across the neck.
Yeah.
So then you seen somebody assaulted by a carny.
It was great.
Holy smokes.
Well, tell him what he said.
Yeah, he goes, "That's what you get for messing with us carnies."
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it
And
was
then they
funny.
took his wallet.
It was funny though because every carny knew something was wrong. Like all of them. All
They
the
have, like, a
games.
carny
So-
sense.
Yeah, carny
yeah,
sense,
they
yeah.
all like do
They-
that thing.
They can smell it.
The
Like-
carny senses are tingling. It sounds like a scene from Braveheart, doesn't it?
It's like girl talk. But
Freedom!
You can take our fail, but you'll never take our freedom.
I deal with a lot of those carnival people.
I
I
like
wouldn't
them.
mess with them. They're you know,
There's some
They're a
rough
type-
they're actually
Bunch.
really nice people though. They really are. They're pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Not the best with the hygiene, but very nice people.
I own the Music Exchange, and I used to be in the Village. And
You own that store?
I do. I own the Music Exchange store. And
I gotta stop putting graffiti on that store. My bad.
when I first opened my store in the Village, all my neighbors said, "Have you been here for the Erie County Fair yet?" And I'm like, "No. Why? What happens?" "Oh, you got to get security. It's terrible.
Yeah.
They're gonna rob you blind. They're like gypsies. They come in and keep you busy and then steal all your stuff." I'm like, "Oh my god!" So I'm like the world's biggest procrastinator, and I didn't even arrange for any security. So the day that they pull into town on the train, I'm pulling up to my store, and they're
Yeah.
all waiting outside my store. I'm like, "Oh my god, it's gonna happen! I'm gonna get robbed! I'm gonna get robbed by gypsy carny folk!" And I go in and I open the door, and a guy comes in, and he's like, "Do you have 10-inch speakers with horns?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he whips a bunch of cash out, walks out the door. This went on all day. "Do you have 10-inch speakers?" They all blew up all their sound systems. So then I'm like, these carny folk aren't bad at all. I'm going to go over there and make peace with them. So I went over there for like the last 10, 15 years. I've been
Doing
dealing with sound systems over there.
for
So
all the ride operators?
for all the rides, yeah. Well, we did it independently for a while. Now we just deal with straight. So
Okay.
because there's some of the rides are independent, and so as a matter of fact, if it's one of those water games, it's probably they wear straight shirts, but it's
Yeah.
probably not a straights ride.
Yeah,
It's
some
not,
of them-
the games are not straights usually.
Yeah. It's so funny though.
Yeah.
I actually know a guy who lives behind where the train parks in that neighborhood, and the only time of the year they lock their doors and their cars in their house is when the train pulls
when
up.
the train pulls up.
Because when he was little, he had a carny break into his house.
No way.
He took his TV, took all this crap, all these electronic things out of his house.
So that it was up as the prize at the game.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
giving away this guy's TV.
Exactly.
All right, we have to head to a commercial break. We're going to come back on the other side with more nonsense, and we're going to be joined by Malia. Stick around, folks.